Everyone, today we're going to start looking at A Realm Reborn, which is one of those parts of Final Fantasy that everyone seems to kind of put warning labels around, and I just want to kind of talk about why I think it actually really works. And I don't want to whitewash a situation where I think something could be fixed or could be changed. So we're going to look at different parts of A Realm Reborn and analyze certain things. I also want to touch on larger big picture topics, themes, and motifs. But let's start out with, I'm going to go with a fresh new character. So we're going to create a fresh new character here. I'm going to go with a bun boy. I think Rava are more fair. And I think Rava are more darker and Vina are more fair. So I guess I'm going to go with... I'm really torn. So I guess I'll go with Vina. I'm going to push that up. I'm going to make the face... I don't want to do a boy face, you know what I mean? I do want him to be a man. He's just going to be a very pretty man. Okay, so we'll go with something like that. And then, I guess we could make him really pale. Kind of like me. I actually can't tan to save my life. So, I mean, I wish I had skin that nice. Not gonna lie. I'm very freckled and stuff. So it's not necessarily... like with pale skin you can see every blemish, right? Not that freckles are a blemish, but okay, so I guess we'll go with like a, I don't know, he kind of looks a little bit dead. He looks like a dead person, right? Is it just me or is it the lighting? Okay, so maybe not so bad under normal conditions. Of course, 7.0 might change all of this, so we can always Fanta him out. How? Oh my gosh, I could probably stay here forever. Let's, want to go with a short haircut? I don't know, everyone. My feeling is if you're not going to have a hat, you might as well go, like, full, right? Like, just go full retard. But I'm gonna, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking we just go. I feel like this is kind of passé because almost everyone has this haircut, but I just think it looks really nice. So we're gonna go with that. Hair color, let's go with a red. Oh, that looks too pink, right? It's like one step over from SJW warrior. So let's do like an auburn. Or maybe we could go like a deep brown, kind of similar to my hair. And then we'll put red highlights into it. So that's kind of what my dream hair would look like if I got red highlights. I've tried to dye my hair before and red highlights fade out really quickly. So that's kind of sucky, but anyhow, I think we all good. I'm not gonna really think too much about I mean, is he starting to look a little bit too much like my Capoe? The answer might be yes. Yes, he is. But here we go. And, you know, we're going to leave everything else the same. We're not going to really... Is the mouth any different? Maybe in our mouth. Okay. So I think we're good. He's just a normal little white bum boy. What's his voice like? Yikes. No. Okay, let's call it a day. Yes. We'll save it into here. We'll call it Vina Bunboy. Yes. And we'll throw him into... This is probably TMI, but we'll put something like that. Now, what is my bun boy going to be? Yeah, let's make him Thaliak. Let's go with Thaliak. Probably not what a bun boy would go for, but it is what it is. Now, technically, if I'm really thinking about what kind of story do I want to go with first, in my opinion, I think there are a lot of great stories. So, for example, the Archer story is really all about racism and prejudice. The Marauder story is very Jungian because it's really about taming your inner beast. The Paladin story, if I recall correctly, was an old DAW, right? I think it was about... I don't think that stood out to me as much, but I think it was about corruption. Maybe I should redo... Maybe I should redo that to remind myself. Conjurer was really fascinating because it was all about like the relationship with the forest and kind of negotiating between the forest and the cultures that are living within the forest. Thaumaturge was a mind trip. I love that story. It's kind of very much related to, I don't know if anyone's seen The Magician's Apprentice from Fantasia, but it reminds me about like little people wanting to do big things and then fucking shit up because they just don't know their place in the order of the cosmos. Arcanist is fascinating because you have this whole thing with this girl with her master, but then she has this past where she was basically like raped. So there's a lot of adult stuff in here. But I do not remember Gladiator. And that's wild to me because most stories stand out. So it makes me wonder, is this a weak point? And maybe we should revisit that at some point. So for now, what I'm going to do, because it will probably help with queuing, is to go through with... Well, I want to do all the jobs because I actually do want to talk about the job quests because there's so many fantastic job quests in this game. For now, okay, maybe we should just do... Which job does he look good in? Oh, Lord, I forgot about this outfit. It's not my favorite outfit, I'm going to be frank. I know some people like it, but, you know, it is what it is. Not bad. Yikes. Pretty good. Of course, always cool. Very nice. Very, very nice. I like that a lot. Cool. Oh, right. So, this is one hat that bun boys can wear. Oh, dear me. Should we go with rape story? I mean, I love me my summoning, but the cues for Sestasha to level could get ugly. You know what? I'm going to make this work. I'm going with Arcanist just because I could actually level Scholar at the same time, right? So this would give me Scholar. Maybe I could finally figure Scholar out. Scholar freaks me out a bit. Won't lie. So let's go with this. All right. I'm going to see if I can get into Lamia. Okay. What am I going to name my bum boy? This is a big deal. This is a big, big, big deal. One
eternity later.
So I'm going to call him Corin. Oh. Sparrow. Why not? One of the most ghetto names. Yeah, let's go. Okay, so now we are going to begin. And let's start. So I'm just going to let this play, and I might talk over this later. But for now, I'm just going to record it. And
here, feel. Hear, feel, think.
okay, so just wanting to stop there and talk about a bit about the opening sequence, which is this odd kind of situation where your character is floating in this, empty kind of space. There is a lot of blues and greens, which is very calming. And in this vision or dream, you are accosted by a dark, villainous looking stranger with a red sigil. I think all of these very simple images let you know right away. Number one, there's a good force of some kind. Number two, there's a bad force of some kind. Number three, you're taking part in this conflict right away. Your character is front and center. You get to see your character in their job gear, and you get to see that your character is having agency of some kind in this story. But what I really find fascinating about this is that it doesn't simply let you sit there, right? It doesn't just suddenly shoot you right into a scene where you're surrounded by people and you have to go and kill things. What does it do next? Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so next we get some text here. Oi, you all right, lad? So we got right away we have some very, it's not Old English. I don't want to call it Old English. It's not even Middle English, actually. It's actually modern English, but very old-fashioned, right? Kind of sets us straight away in the scene, and we are accosted by somebody who says, "You were moaning in your sleep and sweating buckets besides. Rollin' of the ship got your stomach churning, has it?" So right away, I just really want to point out right here that from this writing alone, we are transported to a very specific era we are immediately given a very unique form of talking. Now, of course, there are many characters written by many authors who have spoken like this, but we're immediately kind of brought into a world where there's a person talking like this. So you'll immediately start thinking, you know, a trading class or pirate class of some kind. And what I really liked about this is it meant that people in the translation or writing team actually understood the importance of accents and writing with accented language to create unique characterization. In this one sentence, he places us in a ship. He's placing us as a passenger. Then he goes, doesn't seem like seasickness now that I look at you. It'll be the ether then, I reckon. So he's already introducing concepts, big concepts to us, right? He's not only placing us within the scene, but he's also starting to talk about different things. Some are more sensitive to the stuff than others. See, and we ain't too far from Vilbrand now, which is chock full of aetherites. So he's already mentioning what I would call lore. Now, this is simply data, right? This is simply things that later on we're going to know as being part of the game mechanics. But in terms of lore, he's explaining what ether is. It's linked to aetherites, and people are sensitive to them. No need to fret, though. You'll soon get used to it. Oh, there's rumbling. So this is reminding us yet again we're on a ship. Ugh, might as well have been blooming seasickness. Ship's leaping around like a demented chocobo today. So once again, what I really liked about this opening sequence was that it really grounds us, the player, into a scene, but we're going at it almost, as slow as a glacier, because we're not being just thrown into a world right away and being told, go and get this, go and get that. We're taking our time to accustom ourselves to concepts about this world. So we're in a ship, and we're going to something called Vilbrand, and what I also like here is we're already touching on another bit of lore, which is chocobos. So some recommendation to go on the deck, get some breath, fresh air. Limso Lumen says, still a fair way off, in case you were wondering. Seeing as you're awake and all, how about you keep me company till we get there? Okay. Them youngins don't care for a conversation, see? Oh my gosh. Okay, I love this. Oh, I just want to... Okay, so if you're a new player, you of course will not understand the significance of seeing Alphino and Alice here. You won't understand how important they will become to you. But him pointing it out is just a gentle nudge. It's just a gentle nudge for the reader. Hey, take note, right? And I really like that because it's not waving a massive red flag, but if you are awake and you are sensible about how stories are constructed, you know right away, you can figure out right away that these two might pop up later. So I just really like how we get to see them before they're, major movers and shakers and all of that. And I really love how the story once again introduces another major element without laying it on too thick or without treating us like we're stupid. There's some mystery, but at the same point in time, it's like a hint of foreshadowing. Any road. Brennan's the name, and peddlin's me trade. Okay. Okay, so we get an establishing shot of the ship, basically. I mean, everyone who's done any kind of film studies class recognizes what this is supposed to do. Nice music here. Probably can't hear it very well, so I'll turn it up later. Okay, let's stop here and talk about another major element that I really like about Final Fantasy XIV, and that's the unnecessary dialogue that they stick in for character, for setting, for mood, just to ground any reader who's sensible to good writing. If you're sensible to good writing, if you have taste about good writing, you'll recognize that when you are showing, not telling, what you want to do is evoke an experience without telling the reader what to feel. And what I really like about, for example, simple things like this is that it's not needed to move the conversation along necessarily, but it grounds us in this world by giving us sensory details. So sensory details, the 5 senses, must be accurately and uniquely depicted in writing to ground the reader in. Now, we have tons of pictures right in front of us, so we're almost all the way there just through our visual cues alone. But it's just really nice to see that the writers aren't just sitting back on, their behinds and letting the picture do the heavy lifting. They're also really taking the time to add these little tiny details in, which to me, once again, make it more story-like and less like MMO game-like. Okay, let's stop here yet again. So one of the things I really want to touch on in the latter half of this video that I'm going to do is the concept of the chosen one versus the nobody. And there's pros and cons to both tropes. What I really like about Final Fantasy XIV is it treads this line between having your character be special and mean something, particularly mean something to you, but at the same point in time, you are just another adventurer. So I think there are some people who haven't played A Realm Reborn recently, and they've only played it like once way back in the day, and they're still high on the Kool-Aid of Shadowbringers and Endwalker. And when Dawn Trail came out and was like, oh, we're just back to being adventurers, a lot of people were like, what? I'm special. The reality is that, yes, we had a special role back in the ancient days. We were Asm, but the game really doesn't position you as being particularly special. We're just one other adventurer among many adventurers. And so, yes, you get the sense of I'm special, I have agency, I have this dream, great things are lying ahead for me, right? So that teases you, that makes you want to play the game to find out more about what your character can do. But at the same time, the game is also reminding you, hey, stay humble. You're just one person among it, many. So I'm going to touch on that again later. But yeah, I really love that touch there. Okay, I knew it. Going wherever the wind blows, seeking fortune and glory. Now that's what I call living. As long as you can avoid dying, I mean. Ain't no secret that adventuring's risky business these days, especially. Okay. So what was it that first attracted you to it? Okay. So this is where I think things are kind of interesting. Because in MMOs, we can't really have true choice. Maybe one day in the future, with the empowerment of even more extensive AI or more game developers pushing the envelope of what players can accept. Generally speaking, MMOs are not going to be able to have true choice. They can have superficial or what we call flavor choices to make their character kind of them. But generally speaking, because MMOs are shared worlds, the worlds cannot be significantly different because everyone has to basically be on the same page for the events or mechanics or game offerings. It would be very interesting to see what true game choice would do, but I do think we have already an example of what true game choice could do with WoW making you choose between the Alliance and the Horde. And generally speaking, let's say an MMO came out with 4 endings. Depending on your questions, you could target one of those 4 endings. Chances are one of those 4 endings would be more preferred than the other 3, and everyone would basically pressure a whole bunch of other players to choose, choice number 4. So I really fully understand and support having flavor choice. It's not real, but it is what it is. So all that being said, I really like this question because I think maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think it is really good to question why we play MMOs. Why do we play MMOs? And what I think is really fascinating is at this point, they're really targeting 3 groups of players. You got the hardcore gamers who want to be powerful gamers. We got the people who want to grind and get all of those achievements, right? The glory. And then we have like the guild hoarders, the money grubbers who probably want to craft their way to the top of the market board. So we got these 3 basics. And then ... I assume is maybe like, I just want to go to Limsa to ERP. Let's all be real. Okay, so who knows what the... I never chose ... I went with power. That's I mean, I guess you can understand why I went for Xenos totally, right? I'm not saying I totally want to like do hardcore raiding all the time, but if I can become a better player, I think I would feel really accomplished. Power, as in our power to do good, like protecting the weak and fighting for what's right and all that. I thought that's what you meant. Well, adventurers do get up to a lot of fighting, that's for sure. You'll never be short of a chance to polish your warcraft in the adventuring business. Okay. So what I think is very cute is how he kind of spins it for positive, right? It's positive. And this is kind of positioning us and the whole narrative towards positivity. You got to be careful with this kind of stuff because if you do it too much or you harp on it too heavily, I think it comes off as very cringy and preachy and mothery, right? A game is not your mother. However, what is really good about this is that immediately he goes straight into what power players are into, which is fighting and, getting better and leveling. So yes, he does touch on that kind of, moral moment, but it immediately goes to the gamer moment. So not lingering too much on hammering that home, but it is a reminder that our character is going to be a force for positivity in the world, at least so far. Yes, so he's telling us to sign up to the Adventurers Guild, join a guild. So he's talking about jobs here. So once again, he's doing some tips for beginners, but it's all within the kind of the framework of an old snoopy old man who's a bit gossipy, but who's looking out for you. And I personally find this very personable, and it's a great way to lead you into, you know, the next scene. Just remember, though, there are more important things than fortune and glory, such as breathing. Ain't no profit in being dead, and that's a fact. Yeah, I really love these little moments where he's not saying something that we need to see, but he's saying it because that's the kind of person he would be to say that, right? Like, he's that kind of person. So once again, I really love it. And it's just very personable and unique, and it makes me feel like I'm not interacting with a placeholder, I'm interacting with a person in the world. And yeah, that makes it really real to me, I think. Okay, so now that we've gotten the establishing over, now we're going to pique the player's interest with what we've come to game for, which is conflict, right? We don't read stories just to have an experience. We usually read it to experience confronting conflict and then overcoming it. So right away they move from this, okay, we've done our introduction, we've established part of the world, we've, you know, dipped our feet a little bit into the lore. Now we're going into conflict with pirates, pirate colors. So immediately we're being told there's an issue. Have you no sense? Get below. Okay, sure. I guess haven't gone to the Summoners Guild yet, so my book's a bit useless right now. I'd probably stow those beer bottles a bit more better. What is the world coming to? Pirates firing on a ship flying luminescent colors. Bastards either have a boatload of balls or bugger all for brains. Oh. Okay, you know, I'm going to linger on this for a bit. First of all, I want to talk about alliteration. Alliteration is a form of writing where you will basically repeat certain sounds like consonants and assonants and stuff like that. So this, I believe, is consonants. I believe. Let me just check over here. I'm going to check consonants. Yeah, consonants. Okay, so consonants is when you have repeated consonant sounds. So B in this line, we have a load of B's. Bastards, boatload, balls, bugger, brains. So I really love that. That's a beautiful line right there. And it kind of gives a bit of a rhythm. And the word bugger. This is just so old school, like Enid. Well, not Enid Blyton. Enid Blyton wouldn't say that necessarily, but you know what I mean. Like Agatha Christie, Dorothy Sayers. This reminds me a lot of British writing. So bastards and bugger. I just really love it. It's so flavorful and it's so unique. Now, this word is going to be used a lot in Limsa Lumensa because they are all pirates. So I just love it. Beautiful flavor. Beautiful use of alliteration. And no buccaneers bark. Bark'll catch this flighty temptress once the wind's in her sails. Another thing that I really want to give a shout out to here is that not only are the pirates using pirate speak, even if it is a bit laid on thick, I appreciate it. I also like to say that the pirates sound like pirates. And what I mean by that is that the localizers, this is probably Koji, but, you know, the localizers understand how to use specific terminology for sailing, and this is really great. Even if it's very simple, it still sounds more like a fantasy sailor, if that makes sense. And I kind of know because I was an armchair sailor myself. I had big dreams to one day sail a boat. I was huge into sailing as a kid. I always wanted to get out and, just enjoy some kind of sailing. I never could. It's a very expensive hobby, but it's it's just really nice to see this done in this way. It's an example of how if you read enough, if you're educated well enough, you will be able to write within the world and make it sound very real. Just love it. That was too bleeding close. Glad one of us kept his head on his shoulders. I reckon I'd have lost mine otherwise. Oh, already pumping us up. We're already super cool. If them pirates give up the chase, we must be close to port. Let's head up on deck and have a look, shall we? Okay, let's go up. Another establishing shot. My Bemboy's hair looks so good. Is this your first trip to Louisoix? Okay, technically no, but we're going with yes. Is it? Well then, let this journeyed itinerant tell you the ins and outs of your destination. Louisoix prides itself on being Eorzea's foremost naval power. Weren't too long ago, the place was ruled by pirates, but thanks to the current admiral's civilizing influence, the city-states could almost pass for a respectable nation. Never guessed she was once a rum-swilling buccaneer herself. Okay, so before we get into all of this, I'm not going to explain the lore. I'm going to assume that everyone here has an idea. But if you don't have an idea, let me know in the comments, and I will, in my next video, I'll go more slowly. But basically, what I really like about this is that you can skip this if you've already been through. But generally speaking, what I really like about it is that he's giving us the lowdown, okay? He's giving us the lowdown on what is going on in Louisoix. And generally speaking, for me anyway, I really like this kind of mode. Once again, it's very book-like, and it's letting us kind of understand what's coming up ahead so that when we walk in, we're not going to be 110% like what's going on, who are these people, why should I care? So we already now are starting to understand the political situation, right? So we have ex-pirates creating a nation under a female admiral who used to also be a pirate. Of course, most folks ain't so quick to change, and with a town full of liberty-loving ruffians, you can imagine how many naysayers and troublemakers she's got to deal with, like them pirates who took a fancy to us just now. So, introduction of conflict, interpersonal conflict. And if it weren't bad enough, I've heard that Sahagin are raiding the coast just as bold as you please. Them are the sea-dwelling beastmen the locals call fishbacks, in case you didn't know. Okay, once again, more conflict, more interpersonal conflict. So now we understand when we're heading into the situation and when we're being given quests to deal with these various factions, we aren't just going, what's going on? We have this here as a base foundation knowledge to let us know why these things are happening. Now, of course, you're going to have some people who are just going to click through this because, if it's more than 3 words, like, Lord help them, they can't read. But anyway, for the rest of us who are okay with reading, I just want to point out that once again, I really like the slang. I like the fact that We already have a sense of the culture. We have the sense of perhaps racism and racial tensions between certain groups. You know, the concept of the word fishbacks is a very in-game slur slash slang. So once again, I really appreciate this. Once again, makes it very book-like for me, and I'm really fond of that. Landho. Okay. Behold Limsa Lominsa, a nation blessed by the ocean's bounty and beloved of Limlan, goddess of navigation. Once again, we got some lore. We are introduced to our next zone. Way.
On a windswept isle in the southwestern corner of the realm, amidst the roiling waves of the Rotano Sea, lies the maritime city-state of Limsa Lominsa. To this haven for bandits and brigands, cutthroats and curs, seekers of both freedom and fortune, comes a lone adventurer. Lone yet not alone, for the hero's arrival has drawn the gaze of the nation's patron deity, Limlane. What realm-shaking fate has she descried in the churning waters of this mortal's future?
Okay, so I'm probably going to tear that apart a little bit and really analyze that later. But I just want to say overall, what I really appreciate about it is that it kind of lets us see the zone a little bit, right? It lets us see the city. It lets us see how it looks and how we are placed within that narrative moving forward. There's this whole mention of Limlan seeing something in our future, which is very fascinating because it foreshadows events that will come further down the road. Once again, perhaps you didn't notice it. I noticed that this sense of the 12 gods, are watching over us to a certain degree. Now, the story didn't do much with them until recently. But in general, what I find most fascinating is that the whole point of mentioning Limlan, looking into our future, is to pique our interest and make us realize that we're part of a larger story. And I really appreciate that. And I really love this feeling of a narrator, narrating the adventure. And of course, we come to really love our narrators. I believe the voice for this particular section is Louisoix, if I'm correct. So once again, I really find that very fascinating. If you think about that in retrospective, it makes sense because Louisoix more or less has sent the word of light, and the people of the world, he saved a whole bunch of people, and he is now introducing this adventure that will actually culminate with the Coils of Bahamut, where we will solve the mystery, the tiny side mystery of what really happened on the plains of Cartano. Okay, so now we're leaving the boat, and here's where we part ways, son. I'm off to the markets to deliver me wares. Yep, he's going. Oh, there's Alfie and Alice leaving. Okay, see you guys later. Here, I want you to have this by way of thanks for saving me Ars earlier. Well, we didn't do much saving, Brennan, but thanks. Once again, love the word Ars. Just great. You know, like how crazy would it be if he was like, for saving my butt earlier, right? Like, I'm not an immersion Andy, but that would definitely make me feel a little less immersed. Hey, you never did tell me your name, did you? Well, here's an idea. Become the sort of storied personage I can brag about having met, and I'll consider us square. I'll work on that. Okay. Thanks, bro. I think I'm forming my Warrior of Light's personality
Through peril
already.
and hardship, discovery and triumph, may the navigator guide this brave soul on his life's voyage. Till sea swallows all.
So iconic, walking in there, hearing the music. Like, you hear that music all the time, right? But just seeing this again makes me remember how it felt to experience this as, you know, Nico, my cat boy, and now with Corin. Okay, so just to talk about the title screen, what I really loved once again is we got Louisoix back in as the narrator, and he says till sea swallows all, so it's maybe saying like to the end of time. I think it's a saying, a Limsa Lominsan saying. I believe it might tie to what Y'shtola talks about later, so yeah, just something to kind of keep in the back of our mind. Once again, very story-like. It's almost like a nested narrative. So a nested narrative is when you have a person in a story telling a story. I believe Heart of Darkness is a nested narrative, if I recall correctly. So nested narratives are a thing. And some narrators are very present in the story, like Magician's Nephew, written by C.S. Lewis. So I would think that this isn't so much a nested narrative, but the narrator is definitely closer to the reader and not as distant. So it's just another thing to think about for the beginning. I mean you, this is my district. I make it my business to know all the scum that washes up in it. Wow. So, once again, we have this ongoing discussion in MMOs about, are you the chosen one? And the whole problem with chosen one is I think it's been tainted by poorly written chosen ones. Chosen ones often stray into the zone of Mary Sue and Gary Stu, right? So we got like Rey and Luke Skywalker. Well, there's a difference between Luke Skywalker and Rey. Luke Skywalker was flawed. He made mistakes. He fucked up. He was personable and kind of a bit of a sweetheart, right? He had that farm boy fresh enthusiasm feel that was just really fun. Whereas Rey, to me, was more hardened and tough girl, and I got this. Very cocky, but she didn't really experience much. She didn't really experience much of a downfall that I would like for her to be personable. In my opinion, I think we relate most to people who are struggling, who have flaws. If we see someone who's perfect all the time and doesn't have a failing, we will feel less and less connected to them. in my opinion, when we look at Lord of the Rings, we don't feel as connected to Frodo as much as we do to Sam. Because I think Frodo almost transcends being a person in some ways and is actually more of an archetype. So when we are looking at characters who are chosen ones, it can sometimes feel very Mary Stu or Gary Stu if it's not written correctly. I think Frodo is saved from being a Gary Stu because Frodo ultimately fucks up at the end. Whereas Rey, for all intents and purposes, does not appear to screw up much or at all. In fact, she seems to be telling characters that we know and love how to go about and do things. Like Han Solo, you know, telling him like, oh, I fixed the Millennium Falcon, and it's just like, oh, it was cringy AF. Okay, so what does that relate to this? What I really like is that, you know, from the beginning, yes, we're special. Yes, we have this vision. Yes, we're being watched by the gods. Yes, we are being thrust into a situation where we know we're going to get involved in these conflicts. But at the same point in time, we're just another adventurer and we're being treated like scum. That's great. Yeah, no Gary Stu here. Not yet, anyway. Literally says that we're fobby, or, you know, fobs, fresh off the boat, right? That's my dad, actually. My dad immigrated to Canada when he was about 7 or 8, and he actually came over on a boat. So my dad was fresh off the boat, couldn't even speak English. It was really crazy. Allow one of Limsa Lominsa's finest to set you on the right path. Hop to it, lad. I haven't got all day. Okay. All right. Welcome to Limsa Lominsa. Bustling city-state filled with scoundrels and brigands, the rough-cut diamond of the Rotano Sea. So once again, we are getting here what I will call setting. Okay. And I really like this. Nothing like setting to make me feel grounded. Once again, some people don't give a shit, but I do. So now they're going to basically make us figure out how to kind of engage with the most major parts of the game. And they present it like the idea that you're going to basically be killed if you don't. if you don't get wise. So before you do anything else, get yourself over to the Drowning Wench, love that name, and enroll with the Adventurers Guild. It's giving us literal visuals so that if you're a complete noob like myself, you would not get too lost. Speak with Grafar. He'll show you how to work that big moving platform we call the Crow's Lift, and that'll take you up to the pub. Now we're going to look for Baderon. He's the proprietor. Love that word, proprietor. You don't often get that. He might curse like an ale-sodden sailor, but the man's got a soft spot for wide-eyed newcomers like yourself. He'll set you straight. Got all that? Good. Now run along and may the navigator guide you on your journey. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I just realized I didn't choose my ears, but you know what? I can live with it. I can live with it. We get like a little Fanta at the 50 quest, so if I'm like, no, we can always change this fun boy. Bit. Okay, so we're just going to try to get out of this super easy peasy thing. So we're going to visit the Drowning Wench. You can see that I've bought some I've got some stuff that I could get for Corin, but we're going to go past all of this usual stuff. I'm going to assume that everyone knows how to play this game. Clicking on Baderon, and we're going to get into our first. Okay, so now we are in Limsa, and we're meeting our first guy. And he's going to greet us. Greetings to you, lad. Okay, once again, we got the yees. Love it. Old style stuff. I'm all about that. You can tell. What'll be? Ah, but you ain't here for drinking, are you? You've come with a mind to try your hand at venturing, I reckon. We'll find no shortage of work here in Limsa. Okay, so right off the bat, what I really like about this, once again, it's tying back to the theme that I'm going to completely revisit at, toward the end of this video. The idea of we're not really the chosen one. We're just here for work. This might as well be like your average job center. Names Baderon, and this most hospitable of hostelries is the Drowning Wench. Once again, a lot of people might think this is really stupid, having all of him, all of these words. He's basically dropping his H's, which puts him in a certain class in terms of linguistics. So what Americans and Canadians probably are not as really culturally aware of is that how a person sounds in England matters a bit more, whereas we don't think about it, really. Not really. I mean, of course we have like certain accents we make fun of or whatever. So in Canada we kind of poke fun at people from Newfoundland because of their Newfie accents, but generally speaking, what I really like about language is that you can show a person's status and you can show their life, their experiences, their personality through how they're talking. So right away we can tell that Baderon is a working man. Not just because he's standing behind the counter, not just because we were told he's the proprietor, but also just from how he's talking, we can guess that his background is much like everyone else here. But you can also take a little look. If we take a little look here, even how they are writing it, he's clearly very excited. He's got some long sentences, but it's got more energy to it. So that's why we've got a desk, especially for Anlin Guild business, and why I seem to spend more time saving the necks o' whelps like yourself than wetting the throats o' me regulars. So once again, he's kind of explaining his relationship to you. Adventurers have a knack for finding trouble. Yeah. Okay, so more shots of the city. Always welcome. And once again, he's reminding us about conflicts. So if you weren't paying attention earlier, here we have it again. We got fishbacks. Oh, look, we have another thing. We have kobolds. So once again, they're slowly kind of luring us into all of these things that we're going to get tussling with, right? And I really appreciate them taking the time on that. Oh, now he's mentioning the Garlean Empire, right? So, oh, no one knows what they're planning, of course, but if they're planning anything, you can be sure it's to kill the lot of us. So right away, we're confronted with, we got pirate problems, we got fishback problems, we got kobold problems, and now we have Garlean Empire problems. Great. We're all... So, this is really amazing because I really like how they made the city very inviting to your average player, right? Everyone's going to want to group here for sure. And Limsa is indeed one of the major hubs of Final Fantasy XIV. However, what I really like is he does reiterate that this city is currently in a world of trouble. And who can blame him after everything that's happened? Eorzea took a mighty blow during the calamity, but our ohms weren't the only things what got wiped off the face of existence by that thrice-damned bastard of a dragon. Okay, so this is linking us back to the Realm Reborn trailer. Now, if you're, you know, a super noob and you didn't watch the trailer, you might be confused, right? So, you know, that's a thing that a lot of newbies should actually take time to watch the trailers. They do put the trailers at the beginning of the start menu, but not everyone will go there, unfortunately. Now, Baderon starts talking about more lore, more historical lore, talking about memories, and nobody can remember. No one, lived to tell the tale. You can imagine why people might fear for the future if they can't rightly recall the past. So once again, this is showing, and we can see from the expression that they put on his face, and just the way, like, they have ellipses in here, so he's like pausing and thinking about it. They're using a simile here. "'Tis all foggy, like recollections from an Ard night on the ale." So they're using a simile that a man like him would use, which is really fantastic. And what this all goes to kind of really highlight is how disempowered and uncertain these people are in terms of their future, in terms of their current life. So we're coming into a situation now that's increasingly looking more and more concerning. But there's one thing we all remember, and that's the group of adventurers what laid their lives to drag Eorzea back from the brink when she was bound for the abyss. So now we're being introduced to this concept of the group of adventurers. Once again, if you watch the trailer, you would kind of start thinking, oh, maybe it's that group of 5 or 6 that are in the trailer. But if you didn't, now is where you would find out about it. So a lot more, ellipses here. It's almost like he's slowing down in as he's revisiting his memories. And providing lore reasons as to why they are not going to recognize us or recognize the names. Yeah, so it won't even let us picture their damn faces. Okay, want more similes. And basically, what this comes down to is giving lore reasons why the characters in 2.0 won't remember the players who were fighting in 1.0. So this is all cleanup from 1.0 to a large extent, but it also helps new players coming in understand there was this big calamity, there was this big situation, there were these heroes, and then no one remembers them. And if you're a new player, you're not going to necessarily think, oh, those adventurers were me. Could have been me, right? Or were other 1.0 players. You're not going to think about that right away. That's going to matter much further on down the line, particularly in Shadowbringers. Okay, so now we come to the big lore drop, which is Warriors of Light. And so people call these mysterious heroes they don't remember Warriors of Light. So this is the lore drop. And once again, we are not tying ourselves to the Warriors of Light. We are not the Warriors of Light as far as we're concerned. And if you haven't watched the trailer, you would even feel even more removed from the Warriors of Light, if that makes sense. Now, of course, 1.0 players could probably recognize what's going on here, but a lot of new 2.0 players who who didn't have that history with 1.0 might not recognize what this is. And so this is a title that basically we have to earn it. Even though we're technically are warriors of light, we don't know we are yet. Literally and figuratively. Okay, so if Limsa is ever going to put this time of darkness behind it, it's going to need adventurers to help banish the fear. It's going to need new heroes like the ones we lost. So that's call to action for the reader. Maybe one day you'll be one of them. Foreshadowing. This is foreshadowing. This is telling us, hey, this is where you're going. Okay, so once again, if you're paying attention, you know, you get it, right? So now they're asking us, are we going to join? This is our first nod. Our first nodders. Yep. Thanks to Limlan, we're here. Yattering on like a sun-touched fishwife. Oh, I love that. Okay, so once again, this is a simile. Sun-touched fishwife. Just think about that. Like, just let that seep in and imagine yourself, let's say, a slightly overweight woman working with fish. She's probably like descaling them, and she's got a bit too much sun, but she's gossipy. So she's a bit dazed. She's not in her right mind, but she's still chatty. Okay, so time to put our mark in our book. We're going to put our name down. Corin Sparrow. Distant cousin of Jack Sparrow. Yeah, is it a fine name? I think it sounds a little weird, but it is what it is. Yay, we're now just another adventurer in the Adventurers Guild. Oh, look! Some people show up. So we're asked if we came in on the ferry. Just look at that face. Look at that big face there. Defensive body stances. They're ready to pick on us. Several witnesses have testified independently that a passenger matching your description went out on deck mere moments before the incident took place. Sending your friends signals, were you? So not only are we not warriors of light, not only are we not Mary Sues and Gary Stews, like, nobody likes us. One of the key components to a Mary Sue, Gary Stew situation is everyone loves you in the story. Like, you're just the best thing since sliced bread. But in this case, we are far from feeling like the chosen one or being treated like the chosen one. We are being treated like shit. And we're practically being, accused of being linked to pirates. Baderon's going to come in and save us with a nice lie. This upstanding young gent is me, dear departed grandma's sister's niece's cousin's closest companion. I find that to be incredibly hilarious. I think that's just so humorous and silly. Once again, this interaction doesn't necessarily have to take place. Baderon could have just cut it off right there and said, okay, now that you're signed up, time to get you off, get you to work. But instead we have this whole thing here to reiterate our precarious position. It's positioning us in a place of disempowerment. We are not powerful. No one knows us. No one cares about us. And if Baderon wasn't here to help us out, we'd probably be in jail in BFA. We cannot be too trusting of outsiders at a time when the loyalty of even our closest friends is in doubt. So, wow, like, think about that situation, right? Things are like severely screwed up right here, where we are once again being reminded we're not coming into a situation where people are just going to welcome us with open arms, and we got to prove ourselves, basically. Good times. Oh, I love this. I keep one eye open at all times, me, and two more often than not. Reminds me of Gandalf, right? Very, very cool. Baderon just has so many extra words that he says that most MMOs wouldn't even let him say if they were writing it. I also feel like it adds more flavor and it proves that he's a chatty guy, right? He is a sun-touched fishwife. I also really kind of like it because it just adds that extra flavor to him. And once again, there's nothing worse to me than mobile game dialogue boxes or some MMO dialogue boxes that are just really phoned in. Okay, not a watered down cup of piss like last time, I should hope. That's hyperbolic, but who knows. So once again, we got some back and forth showing basically just showing how Baderon is welcoming and charismatic, and how the guards are basically on edge, and you know, this is the situation that you are in. And talking about yellow jackets. And what is this all leading up to? Baderon talking about kidnappings. You know, they've been clapping irons on anyone who looks vaguely suspicious, which means venturers, visitors, and pretty much every bugger else in this town. So, yeah. So once again, more foreshadowing of what we might be dealing with. Some great similes here, where the scene's as green as the faces of me patrons after a few too many black belly whiskies. Just love it. I love it. Like, how many mobile games do you think like use similes like that? I would bet not as many as we would like. Okay. Quest complete. Am I gonna level up? Okay. Yes. Leveling up. All right. So we're gonna stop it for here. We have our new bun boy with Baderon, and we have begun really our first MSQ quest. So I'm going to end recording the game here. Perhaps, I wonder if I can sit down. Can I sit down? / sit. Butterfingers. Okay. So, in short, this is where I'm going to end the MSQ, and as I continue with this little exploration of Final Fantasy XIV, I hope that you all enjoyed this tiny little review of the opening sequence. I'm going to have just a little talk about establishing shots or how to introduce things, and the concept of the chosen one versus the special one versus the nobody. I'd really like to talk about that as well. So it will either be at the end of this video or it will be in a separate video on its own. But I am going to call it here for tonight. And Corin and I will wish everyone well. And I hope you will tune in for my next chat. Let me know if you want me to focus on anything in particular when I'm analyzing the stories. So I'll see you all next time. Take care.